Okay, so let's continue. So we talked about this get symbols, and we have the data stored in here. Then we take that data and we do 100 minus it to get the employment rate. This was the unemployment rate. And now if you look at ER, let's look at it. You can see this is what it looks like, the head, and it has, this is like, I guess, a label, and this is the actual data. So also if we look at that, we can see that actually ER is what's called an XTS object. That means extensible time series, and that's a class, and that's, I guess, what QuantMod uses to store the time series data that it gets from the FRED data source, right? We saw that, well, wherever that was. We saw that here actually. It gets this from FRED, and it stores it as an XTS object. So that's a kind of a time series object, so it enables us to work with it more easily. And then we saw, if we do just this part here, just look at the dim names, we'll see that there's the first one is doesn't have a name, but the second one has a name. So we saw the first one didn't have a name, the second one is called that. So what he wants to do is change it from this, which is kind of a weird word, to ER. So all he does is changes it to ER like that. Okay, next thing is we're going to chart it, and we're going to use this function, which is from the QuantMod, and it makes a nice chart. And he uses white, but I'll just use black just to show you. You can use black or you can use white. I'm not sure what the other possibilities are, but those are possible. If I try that, use black, I get this graph here. So this is from the quant mode, and this shows me from January 1948 to here the unemployment rate, or I'm sorry, the employment rate, right? Goes up to almost 100%. Okay. Okay, now the next thing he does is he converts it to a data frame with this. So let's see how that changes things. Or he makes a data frame out of it, I should say. So let's see how what that does. So if we do this, what kind of thing do we see now? So I'm interested particularly in what does it do to the first column. Okay, it doesn't change the name of the first column. And why didn't I didn't change the name here. I forgot to change the name there. Okay, let me do that. Okay, so I changed the name here, then redid the as data frame, and then I have the new name there. Okay, so next he's going to use this function called YMD, which is from the Lubridate package, which we also installed. And basically what that does is if you suppose we have these a character string like this. So obviously this looks like a date, this looks like a date, and this looks like a date, but they're really just, at this point, they're just characters. So we put that in X, and we do YMD to that, and it turns it into basically a date. And by a date, when things are dates as opposed to strings, you can calculate differences between days, and you can do all kinds of things that you might want to do with a date that if it's just a string, like it is before we do the YMD function, those things won't work. So we want to, they might say, coerce it into being a date, or we want to transform it into a date. So that's what he's going to do next. So he does that here. So he takes the row names for our data frame. So we saw that the row names, let's see, do we have it? Are here. These are the row names. This is the row name. It certainly looks like a date, but it's only a string at this point. So he takes the row names and he puts that into the YMD. And he gives that, and he calls that date. So now we're going to have a new, let's do it, we're going to have a new column called date in our data frame. So let's look at head of data frame now, and now we have a new column called date. Looks the same as the row names, but it's been transformed into a date. Okay, so the next thing he does is he's going to create a time series object. Now this is just the name of it, but he's going to use the time series function. So let's take a look at the time series function for a minute and see what that's about. So let's go to here. I looked up TS in R, and this is it. And it says that you put in data. So that's what we're going to put in, some data. The data is going to be a vector or a matrix. In our case, it's going to be a vector of observed time series values. And one thing you're going to need is a start. You have to fill in start, and you're going to have to fill in end. You're going to have to tell it where it starts and where it ends, when the beginning time and when the end time is. So let's take a look at these two statements, this example and this example, and compare them and see what we get. So here we're going to create some time series. So the first one is a time series from 1 to 10. So those are going to be the vector. So it's just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Frequency is 4. And we're going to say the starting time is 1959, second quarter, because we said the frequency is 4, so it's quarters. The next one, we're going to have the frequency is 7, and the starting time is going to be a vector 212. And let's see how that affects things. So let's do both of these. So here's the first one, and here are the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10. And the frequency is 4, so it means these are considered quarters. And the starting time is going to be 1959, second quarter. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one has the same vector, 1 through 10, but we say the frequency is 7. So we're going to have 7 instead of 4. We're going to have 7 categories, and I guess it just names them P1, period 1, period up to period 7. And then the starting time is 12, 2. So that means that it's this. That means this first row will be called 12, and it will start in period 2 of that. So that's where it starts. Okay. So with that in mind, let's look at what he does. So remember the vector was 1 through 10. Well, here, what is it? It's our data frame, the ER variable. So it's our employment rate numbers. Okay. Then we have to give it a start time, and we have to give it an end time. Maybe we don't have to give it an end time, but he does that. And the frequency, we're going to do 12, so we're going to say that our data is monthly, basically, by doing that. And then we're going to, when we give the start time, remember in the last example, we gave the start time as a vector. Here was a vector. Actually, we didn't have an end time, but anyway, we have the start as a vector. So this will tell us the row, and this will tell us the period or the column. So we're going to do something similar here. So we're going to have 1 comma. So we're going to have this one versus and this one. So this is going to tell us the row. which is going to be the year, and this is going to tell us the column, which is going to be the month. So when do we want it to start? What year? We want to go to our data frame, and we want to look at the date, and we want to extract the smallest value from that, and we want to extract the year from that. So if we just do that, if we just go to our data frame, the date, and extract the smallest value and extract the year out of that smallest value. Let's just do the smallest value first. Remember, I guess the way to understand this code is generally to work from the inside out. So let's do that. So that's the smallest value. But then if we want to get the year out of that, we get just the 1948 part. So you see that we converted this. Remember, it was just a string, but we used the, what did we use? We used, I forget. Where did we create date? We used this. We used this, which converts it into a date. So now we can talk about, if it was just a string, we couldn't talk about the minimum value, right? If it's just a string, there is no minimum of a string. But we converted it to a date, so we can talk about the minimum. And we couldn't even really talk about the year if it was just a string, but we can since it is a date. So that's the convenience of converting it to a what did we do? Where did we do that? The YMD, converting it to a date object, because then we can talk about minimum and the year and so on. So like I said, when you convert these to these certain kinds of structures or objects, then it's convenient in terms of analyzing it or working with it. Okay, so anyway, here we have that one. Now we want to go back to here. So the year is where it's going to, that's going to be the row where it starts, and that's going to be the month. And then the end, what are we going to have for the end? We're going to have, again, the year and the month. And I don't know what would happen if we didn't have the end there. But anyway, so we're going to have the year, which is the maximum of the date, and then take the year, and then, sorry, and the month, this is for the end. So take the maximum and take the month. Okay, so we're going to do this. And now we're going to have what we call a time series, because we use the time series function, and we needed to supply a start. I'm not sure we needed to supply an end. We needed to supply the frequency, and we needed to supply the vector. So now it's a time series object. Again, that's going to mean that we can do certain things with it. So it's different than a date object. A date object is for a single date, but a time series object is a different kind of object, but it's useful for what we want to do, which is analyze time series. Okay, so I'll stop with that here and go on to the next video.